A big hearty thank you to everybody who made worship today possible. I appreciate you and I appreciate all that you're doing. It's unbelievable, isn't it? It is just unbelievable that any child should ever go hungry, whether we're talking about any child in the whole world or a child in the United States or in Maryland or the kid that lives on your street. Hunger is a global issue, and it is also right next door. There are so many social justice issues in our world, issues that we're passionate about. It could be immigration or climate change, homelessness, reproductive justice, animal rights, sex trafficking. The list of issues and challenges is long and often heartbreaking. I have often found that people have one or two issues that really rouse them to action. Not that they don't care about the other issues, but I think certain things strike a chord with individuals and move them to do something about it. Those one or two issues inspire people to use their time and their money to get out there and to make a difference. I respect whatever your personal cause is. It takes all of us with different passions to work on the difficult problems in our world. Well, for me, a child going to bed hungry at night is one of those issues. It makes me crazy, just crazy, that in our neighborhoods, we have kids who simply don't have enough to eat or even know if they'll have enough food tomorrow. This sermon, invites us to take a look at why we let childhood hunger happen, and I ask the question, how do we make sure that no child ever goes to bed hungry? I've been working on hunger and feeding people in my community of Fairfax County in Virginia for about 12 years now. Fairfax is one of the richest counties in the United States, and every day, every single day, more than 52,000 children, that's 25% of the kids who attend Fairfax County Public Schools, they qualify to receive free or reduced meals. When those kids aren't in school, who knows if they have enough to eat? That so many kids in the county that I live in go hungry just makes me crazy. That kind of frothing at the mouth kind of crazy. What makes you feel that frothing at the mouth kind of crazy? I could spend our time together today showing you a slideshow of hungry kids locally and from all around the world. I could give you images of kids with big eyes and empty stomachs. We could put stirring music to slideshows, and we could make it so it just pulls at your heart. But my guess is that your heartstrings are already pulled, knowing that kids are hungry. I could give you all kinds of facts and figures about hunger. Oh my gosh, I could give you a whole presentation of facts and figures and research studies on hunger. I could give you the history of hunger in the United States and all kind of data till our eyes glaze over, and our natural system that turns off, pain kicks in, and we simply just don't want to hear it anymore. I mean, we're bombarded, aren't we? Just bombarded and overwhelmed by what childhood hunger is. We see it on TV and on Facebook with online requests and billboards and snail mail ads with all kinds of requests for us to help people with the dire needs. We're just inundated, aren't we? I could get those big sheets of paper and cover the walls of the sanctuary with all kinds of facts and figures about hunger. I could fill this room with pages and pages of the current initiatives and the programs, working groups and conferences that are happening all over. We could talk about all the great thinkers and all the great thoughts they have and the speeches that they give on hunger in our community. Hunger problems seem so large and so big. Childhood hunger seems like a huge mountain that we can't climb and an ocean that we just can't get our arms around. And amid the noise and the words and the good intention, I find myself closing my own eyes and ears and sitting for a moment and saying, what can we do? Oh, what can I do? And when I personally feel overwhelmed by it all, I come back to the words in the Gospel of Matthew. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. For me, those lines make the task simple again. Those two lines make it personal and one-on-one again. Those two lines help me to focus. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. It's pretty clear. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I simply go with those two lines. And as I learn more and more about the world of hunger, I find a whole new language about it. The book, A Place at the Table, edited by Peter Pringle, is a good resource, as it offers easy-to-read and understandable essays written by people working on hunger issues all over. There's a new language to this world of hunger. The United States isn't like a third world country where we openly have people or tribes or villages that are starving. We don't often have people starving in our streets. In fact, rarely do we hear that people are starving in America. We say people are food insecure or they're food secure. From the book, A Place at the Table, people are defined as food secure when they have access at all times to enough food for an active and a healthy life. That sounds kind of easy, doesn't it? Access at all times to enough food for a healthy life. I open my fridge at home and there's food inside, always. Or I have easy access to get food to put in my refrigerator or my pantry. Food insecure is obviously the opposite. I wouldn't have access at all times to enough food for a healthy and active life. The term food insecurity itself is then broken down into two categories: food insecure with hunger and food insecure without hunger. So, in the making of terminology we have for hungry people, we have people food insecure to begin with, and now we even have categories for them. Food insecure with hunger means people have no food and are hungry. Food insecure without hunger means people have just eaten but don't know if they'll have food again anytime soon. In America, we have about 50 million people who are food insecure in both categories, and half of those are children. Most accounts say 1 in 5 children live in poverty in the U.S., 1 in 5. If you're an American child or a Latino child, it's 1 in 3. 1 in 3 African American or Latino children live in poverty. 50 million hungry people, with half, 25 million being kids in the United States, that are food insecure on any given day. And of course, we already know how important learning and nutrition is. Not just sugar snacks and soda, but fresh fruits and vegetables for our children to eat to help them learn in school. One more phrase I learned is food desert. What on earth is a food desert, I thought? In the food and hunger world, when a person lives in a food desert, they have no car and no grocery store or farmer's market within a mile radius. That means food is bought at a gas station or a Quick Mart or a convenience store. Fresh fruits and vegetables aren't available, or they're simply not affordable. No car and no access to healthy food within a mile equals a food desert. We have lots of food deserts in the United States. We have lots of food deserts here in Maryland. So I scratch my head and I'm thinking, why? How does this happen? Why does humankind allow people to go hungry? I mean, it's been proven over and over again that we globally have the money and the power and the scientific knowledge and the resources to feed our population. We know that in the United States we have the money and the power and the scientific knowledge and the resources to feed our own population. But in every one of our 50 states and DC, we have enough to do that, but we don't. We choose not to. We choose to not end hunger. And that perplexes me. Why don't we choose to just end hunger? Why don't we just fix this? We have the power to do right and feed our children. We have the power to do right. Why do we have hunger and food insecurity and kids who don't get breakfast or lunch on snow days? Because the most consistent meals they get are at school. And if school closes, chances are they don't eat. Snow days aren't much fun for them. Snow days and 3-day weekends and holidays become hunger days. How does this happen? How do snow days that are supposed to be fun and holidays become hunger days? How did this 3-day weekend become hunger days for so many? And people aren't hungry because it's an act of God. You know that term, act of God. That's a term that insurance companies use for floods and tornadoes and blizzards and acts of nature outside of our control. I would argue that hunger is not an act of God because we can control it. We can't control the weather, but feeding everyone is within our control. But why don't we? Humankind is generally kind and compassionate. Almost every religion has its own version of the golden rule. Do unto others as we have done unto ourselves. I bet we'd like some help if our cupboard was bare. Theologically, I can find quotes and readings from all the faiths and many secular leaders as well. But yet hunger continues. In our denomination, we have the Unitarian Universalist principles and our values. We talk of the dignity of every person. Is it not dignity, that feeling of being food secure and that you will have enough to eat? We also talk about the interconnected web, and isn't it important, an important part of that web, that all have access to nutritious food and there just aren't any more food deserts? I often think of the words from the prophet Isaiah. And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Who shall I send and who shall go for us?" And then I said, "Here I am, Lord. Here I am, send me." Send me to make sure that no child goes hungry. Send me to empower communities and work with them to feed kids who simply don't have enough to eat. I needed to practice what I preach, and I needed to contact the elementary school that's only a block and a half away from my house. I must admit I was a little nervous because if I contacted them and there was a need to feed some of the kids that attend there, well, I was going to have to be ready to help. But I reached out to them, and yes, indeed, they have a program and said send food home with 30 kids every weekend. The pandemic hit so many families so hard. So I worked with them to build a pantry in the school, and I'm still working with the PTA to build the shelves. Think about what the closest elementary school or middle school or high school is to your home. Picture it. What is the closest school to your house? Do any of you have kids or grandkids that go there? Do they have a program that feed kids in need on the weekends? You might check it out. Think about where you live and what are the schools closest to you. Do they have a program to feed kids on the weekend or during the summer? You might not know, and that's cool, but just ask them. Ask them how you can help. Do you know how much it costs to feed a kid for a whole weekend? About $10. About $10 provides cereal and mac and cheese or tuna helper, chicken and beans and rice, some vegetables, a snack of raisins, granola bars, peanut butter and jelly, and a fresh fruit. $10. When I go to Starbucks for my favorite latte and a scone with a tip, that's $10. And I do enjoy my lattes. And there are a lot of ways, a lot of creative ways to help feed kids in your communities. That's why I started my own nonprofit, No Child Goes Hungry. I do the fundraising and give a grant to a congregation or an organization, and I invite them to go feed kids. I keep it simple, just like the Gospel of Matthew. And I've got about 280 grants working out there. One grant, one organization at a time. So lately, for some odd reason, I've been thinking about past presidents of the United States. Some of you might remember that on May 25th in 1961, President John F. Kennedy stated to a joint session of Congress the goal that within a decade, the U.S. would put a man on the moon and bring him back safely. What a goal! And the United States did it. It was a bold, audacious goal, and it stated openly and with confidence. Kennedy stated that goal and then backed it up with action, and we did it. We sent a man to the moon, and we brought them back safely. What if our goal was that no child in America ever went to bed hungry, or no child in Maryland or Rockville ever goes to bed hungry, or a child in this neighborhood or a child connected to this congregation ever goes to bed hungry? Then another town or city might follow our lead, then another, and then another, and then one by one by one. Right here in your community, you can make it happen in your closest schools. You can partner with them to make sure that every child has enough to eat. On weekends and holidays and summer vacations, it matters. Every meal you provide as a community matters. And there are so many different ways to feed kids. Like the young man tossing the starfish back in the water, one at a time. It matters to that one. No child would ever go to bed hungry. I so believe in the starfish story and tossing the starfish back in the water that I had a tattoo of a starfish put on my arm. On the days when I feel the need, when I personally feel the need to feed every child in the world, I just look at my arm and it reminds me to feed one. Because if I feed one, then I can feed thousands. We can do this together. We can eliminate childhood hunger because no child should ever go hungry. May it be so. May we be audacious enough to make it so. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.